we've all been stretched, and the resilience part is coming back to some sort of form or shape. And I think we're all collectively in this process of finding out what kind of shape are we coming back into after this year of being stretched. So I could go on, but I won't. I'm really touched by just being back in my spiritual home and all of the support that I've received from East Bay Meditation Center. Tonight we're going to be exploring, as far as I still know, the experience of imposter syndromes, and particularly how the mind is an influencer into that experience. Just by a show of hands to those of you who are on the screen, how many of you have experienced this idea of feeling like you're an imposter in some context? Okay. I just wanted to see if this is relevant. I think you'll be surprised by what we share. And thank you for raising your hands. And I think we're just going to go right into a period of practice right now. My practice these days, in not only my own practice, but in the practice that I offer here in LA and other places, is really a body-focused, body-based practice of meditation. So if you are seated in a way that you feel you can hold for a while, please continue to do that. To those of you who may want to explore lying down and feeling a little bit more connected to the surface of the floor or the couch or whatever that object is, do that. If anyone wants to stand, please do that. But this body-based orientation is really about listening to and trusting that the body knows the pathway to stillness. So a good deal of this practice is an introduction into how to prepare ourselves to allow the body to support us in preparing for insight awareness. And so even as you sit there or lie there, and if you're looking at me, continue to look, but just become more internally focused, internally aware of how your body is doing. It's very casual, very casual. Feel the lower half of your body. Become aware of your arms, your back, the front of the body, the chest or breast area, the abdomen. Just notice. How is it right now? Do you feel stimulation? Do you feel tightness, contraction? Do you feel some sense of ease? On the count of 3, I invite you to take a collective breath with me that allows your abdomen to expand and release the air that you bring in. But see if you could take a deep breath with me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, and inhale deeply. Hold and release. And as we enter into this preparation stage for insight awareness, I invite you to release your need to manage your thoughts. Allow the thoughts just to be totally unregulated. Keep the door open and let them come and go as they want. They know where they're going and where they need to go. And the same for the breath. Let's just allow the breath to be unregulated. And let us bring our focus into the lower half of the body, from the soles of the feet all the way up to the waist. And just allow yourself just to explore what this part of the body is in contact with. There may be other parts of the body that are calling your attention, but see if you can just bring your awareness to the lower half of the body for a little while. Unregulated thoughts, unregulated breath. And we just want to cooperate with the body and observe how it regulates itself, how it repairs things, how it brings the tempo down on its own. And it requires patience and observation. But keep it casual. The body knows the pathway to stillness. Learn from it. In the lower half of the body, you may notice stimulation in the feet, or in the thighs, or the sit bones, the calves or shins, the toes. You may notice microclimates like warmth and coolness happening simultaneously throughout different parts of the lower half of the body. Or pressure from the fact that you are making full contact with that object that you're on. Just patiently allow yourself to notice the body changing. We're going to shift our focus in the body and begin to ascend up beyond the waist into just the upper portion and lower portion of the back and the spine that runs up and down the middle. Is the quality that you find here different than it was in the lower body? Are there heat signatures or coolness signatures or stimulation, spasms, tightness? Just explore this part of your body as you observe the subtle changes taking place in the wholeness of the body. We're going to continue to ascend up into the upper parts of the body, moving from the shoulder blades up and then just encompassing the entire skull from the back to the top, to the face and the chin and the ears. Just feeling the sense of energy and the way that the body responds to your attention as you shift your focus into the skull region. Noticing the heat signatures and the microclimates that are happening around the different areas around the head. Allowing your expression that you've been holding today to dissolve and change, loosening the jaw and the lips, the eyebrows, just allowing them to fall into some sort of natural posture. And we're still only in preparation for insight awareness. We're allowing the body to find its way to stillness, so that objects of awareness can just arise and they become self-apparent, and we're not working as hard, striving, efforting. And now we will descend from the area of the skull down past the collarbone. And we're just going to encompass the area from the top of the collarbone down to the bottom of the abdomen or belly. And just allow our awareness to rest in the heart center and the solar plexus in the lower belly area along the rib cage, and just become aware of this front part of the body, which symbolizes so much of who we are and how we are. And what we are. Just ask yourself, does this part of my body, this hemisphere of the upper body, does it feel different than the skull? Does it feel different than the back? Are things happening in this region that are not happening in the lower half of my body? Can I notice the subtle ways that the body responds to my gaze and my attention, my awareness? Allow your shoulders to drop if you feel it's necessary. And allow your arms and hands to fall into a relaxed posture. If you feel tension in your upper abdomen, the solar plexus, in these days and times that we're in, that's probably considered normal. So don't be alarmed by a sense of tension or heat that's in the upper abdomen or in the belly area. And if you like, you can just breathe in a little deeper and allow your belly to expand, just to bring some oxygen to the muscles that are there. And that has a way of just releasing some of the pressure you've been holding. And now I invite you, as you hold this gentle awareness, to take one or two hands And place them on a part of your body where it just feels right, where you're able to feel the impression of the palm, the length of the fingers and the fingertips making an impression. It could be on your top of your thighs, on the belly, or the upper body. But what I want you to explore is as your hand makes this impression upon you, explore if you can feel into what that symbolizes for you. What does it say? What sense of care or compassion is possibly being transmitted and communicated? This is a somatic language that we learn that does not require our phrases or our words or our verbiage. This is for you to experience how you support yourself. And see if you can make yourself available to take in that communication, what that means. What does it feel like? And you may continue this form of open awareness touch, or you may release. But just begin to take a full universal gaze at the condition of your body now. Has it changed? Can we trust that the body knows the pathway to take? Can we be a little more patient with the body and the process that it has to bring us to a place that may be a little more desirable than where we've spent most of our time today and the way we spent that time? The Buddha says that the whole of the Dharma is contained within this fathom-long body. Fathom meaning a measurement of 6 feet on average. The body is a vessel of wisdom. And as we approach the end of this practice period, I invite you to take a deep breath on the count of 3 and to allow your eyes to open on the exhale while still maintaining this sense of connection that you've established with yourself. 1, 2, 3. Inhale deeply. And release while opening your eyes and just being aware of your surroundings in a gentle and observant way. Don't make any rush or reactive movements. Just allow yourself to maintain your composure in this way. And I want to say thank you for your practice. Thank you for allowing me to lead you through this short exploration of preparing for practice. Thank you so much. Every day is different. Every moment is different when you really start paying attention, but let's just call it, let's just work with the day. And for some reason, like right now, I'm remembering an anecdote from a interview I was observing. I really pay attention to a lot of people who are kind of fluid in the creative space, and that there's like thousands of spaces where you can express creativity. But this one person, and specifically, is a filmmaker and an artist by the name of David Lynch. Anybody familiar with David Lynch? Yeah. And so someone was asking him, David, in your experience, what is the most essential part of the creative process? And, I can't mimic his voice, but he has like this high kind of voice. And he's like, the idea, being able to capture an idea. And so I was able to really resonate with that, because just today, and what he would say is like, the idea comes and you write it down in such a way that you're able to revisit the impact that idea had when it first visited you. So that when you go back to that paper, it has like some sort of connection to the emotion that you felt when you got that aha moment. And so I'm out walking today, and I'm like in mental preparation for this particular class. And I had these ideas coming to me to like really sharpen the focus of my topic tonight, but I didn't have a pencil, and I didn't have a paper, and I didn't feel like fumbling with my phone. So I'm sitting here. Just remember, I left some good ideas down on Pico Boulevard and Sepulveda, they're just out there, right? And so I think I was just feeling a little bit of the anxiety of like, wow, that was an opportunity that I had to really participate with the universe in really giving me more of what I wasn't even looking for. It was almost like a treasure, that I had access to, that I wasn't able in the space of mine to really acquire and to keep for a future purpose. But I trust it will come back in circulation. Moving into our topic, and I'm also content with the fact that, I feel like I'm at home, and I feel that I have enough. When I said yes to this opportunity, I felt that I was equipped back then to actually do this. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. I inquired and asked for hands of those of you who've had some experience of what we know as the imposter syndrome, or the experience of being identified with being an imposter in some way, shape, or form. I know that that's not a pleasant place to be. Maybe later on when we get into the Q&A, I'll let you, we'll have an opportunity for a little more expression around that. But that particular experience is so, like, is such a tight place to be. It's a very uncomfortable place to be. And in my practice and in my thoughts about this, and some of the study that I've been doing, the mind sciences, also known as psychology, some things that I found from that realm were that, this thing about imposter syndrome is a real thing, although there's no real diagnosis for it. And what they have defined it as, imposter syndrome, as a very real sense of intellectual self-doubt. That's how that's one of the minor definitions of imposter syndrome, is that, the mind sciences are actually looking at this and they're like, yes, this is intellectual self-doubt. And it's also accompanied by anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression are interesting because those are two of the principal things that our mindful awareness practice or meditation practices have been proven to reduce, to mitigate. But I don't know specifically how or where. I know in the overall sense, meditation does kind of improve our wholeness, the wholeness of our intellectual being. But I haven't exactly been exposed to teachings that target self-doubt specifically. In those other areas where we feel like we're caving in. That's just a preface. Intellectual self-doubt. So what is an imposter? An imposter, and one of the simplest definitions of an imposter, and this is probably going to be the most pivotal part of what I'm sharing tonight, is that when we are visited with this idea that we are an imposter, there's a sense of, in my experience, a sense of shock, a sense of dread, a sense of fear, a sense of the mind gets really active in that, you're gonna bomb, you're gonna choke, you have no business doing what you have agreed to do. And there's this sense of disparity in between what we said we could do and what we actually feel empowered to do. But I think that those particular experiences, we have a way of telling ourselves, like, this is what an imposter is. I must be moving into the shoes of an imposter because I'm experiencing these things. So the definition of an imposter is a person who pretends to be someone else in order to deceive others. I'll say it again. An imposter in the simplest definition, is someone who pretends, perpetrates to be someone else for the purpose of deceiving others. Now, look at this and compare it to the your experience of what you felt was what you felt where you were being overcome by of feelings of being an imposter. And ask yourself, was I trying to be someone else? And more importantly, with that thing that I agreed to do, that speaking opportunity, whatever it was did I prepare myself and respond to that opportunity for the express purpose of deceiving the people that I was supposed to be engaging? Was I invested in my own sense of fraudulent representation? Is this what you thought an imposter was? Is this how I saw yourself when you had the experience, or you felt you were having the experience of being an imposter? Practicing, preparing, aligning your intention for the express purpose of deceiving somebody. And EBMC helped me do it. That doesn't sound right, does it? And maybe just with this simple definition of what an imposter is, maybe you never have to put yourself in that position where you think you're being an imposter again, ever. Because if you're on this forum, and if you're working with the heart practices of love and compassion and joy and equanimity and forgiveness and the plethora of heart practices and heart language that we're learning, and healing and alignment and community and interconnectivity, we're not doing all of that for the purpose of deceiving people. It doesn't even apply to you under most conditions. And now, that doesn't mean that we can't be tempted under immense pressure to not really be 100% truthful. And that's something that we have to work out over the continuum, because that happens from time to time, and we know that. But the imposter syndrome or experience that you've known, allow the definition itself to unshackle you. Imposter syndrome in the mind science is a very real and specific form of intellectual self-doubt. So when we are responding to a call to do this, that, or the other, there could be, self-doubt is a real thing. And in that moment when self-doubt is really high, where you almost don't want to go through with, that thing that you're called to do, self-doubt can really start speaking in ways where it's like, I shouldn't have never, I have no business being up here doing this. But the question is the intention. Are you really invested in yourself to where you trust yourself enough that you don't need to be somebody else? You can't be somebody else anyway. But do you trust yourself enough to give yourself the room to grow into this new venture that you are endeavoring this new venture of expression that you're endeavoring to engage? And number two, in this new venture, what are you endeavoring to do? You're probably endeavoring to make some sort of wholesome impact on a person or a group of people of some magnitude. You're not there to deceive others. So I'm just offering the definition itself as a possible key to unlock you, and maybe even to unlock you from the past memories of thinking that you were an imposter, you misrepresenting yourself and aligning yourself with something that was misdefined all along. I hope that that resonates for you at some point, you know, in your practice, in your life, where you can really look back and see, wow, I was really tripping. I never really looked at myself. I wasn't seeing myself the right way. Now, what does happen though, is that when we are responding to our deepest intention, or one of our deep intentions to express ourselves, and I'm saying kind of like in a position of like assuming leadership or speaking or some sort of artful expression, you know, there's a plethora of genres in which we can find ourselves being visited by this area of self-doubt. But the thing that I want us to look at is the definition of what an imposter is, which is someone who's trying to be someone else to deceive others, and to look at the real side of it. What is really beneath the self-doubt is the fact that we are being visited with a need to learn and to continue to practice. And that always there's always a disparity in between what we think we can do and what we're actually doing. And it's the practice that bridges the gap in between those two. Envisioning this best version of yourself, and it's like, well, it got you lit up, but when you get out to actually express and to practice that best version, it doesn't match the vision 100%. So we just need to be committed to this practice and the process of our own development, so that we gain the confidence. We know our material, we know our routines, we know all of these things. So I'd like to share a quick story with you. There's a lot of different layers that are within this talk, within this topic, that I'm omitting just for the sake of time. But I feel like I'm giving you the core principles of it, and I hope that it's just a seed that produces something over time. But the story I want to share with you is one that I heard Dave Chappelle, the comedian, the comic, share. And this story was one of the many stories that Dave would tell about his early days as a comic in New York. And I think he was 19 at this time. And he had the honor of being in the opening act for Richard Pryor. And Richard Pryor was in the midst of his final performing days. And this was like his last tour, I believe Dave articulated it as. And Richard Pryor, you know, had a very, very celebrated path to stardom. And he also had a very hot and hellish path to, you know, the descent from stardom. He set himself on fire, and, you know, just, you know, different marriages and all, you know, just life showed up for Richard Pryor, and he kept going. He just kept going. After the worst of the worst, he kept going. And so Richard Pryor kept going in the sense that he showed up for this show that was sold out, that Dave Chappelle was opening for him. And I believe it was in New York. And at this time, Richard Pryor was sick and he was on a cane. And the way David told the story was that he got up and did his act, and he did the act as best as he could, David did, and he just wanted to get out of the way so that Richard Pryor could come out. And so they announced Richard Pryor, the audience, the curtain pulls back, and Richard Pryor just kind of limps out on his cane. He's showing up, not trying to be someone else. He's showing up being Richard Pryor. He's showing up to perform. And he's limping out on this cane, and he stands there in front of the audience, and they're just so relieved to see him. And they're just like, yes, Richard, yes. And he just stands there. And so I'm going to pause here and say that this particular space is the space where our past experience with this idea of being an imposter can really be amplified. Because you're meeting that moment. You're meeting that demand that you have responded to. And as Richard stood there, the audience is just waiting for him to do his thing. And David said that David was there. David said that Richard, appeared to be struggling. And David said that Richard finally just leaned up towards the mic. And he said, hey, you know what? I'm really happy to see you all. And I really, really want to do this for you, but I can't. And you could hear a pin drop. And the pin just fell and fell and fell and fell as Richard Pryor let the cat out of the bag. And this particular situation is what our fears of being identified as an imposter are about. It's about showing up to meet the demand, and we're paralyzed by fear. We're paralyzed by the sense that we're going to bomb and choke, that we're going to fall flat. But Richard stood there in all of his authenticity and said, hey, you know what? I really, really want to do this for you, but I can't. This was his authenticity, his truth. And David said that a moment later, at the back of the audience, in this packed house, at the back of the auditorium, this Black man stood up and said in a fighting voice, "We love you, Richard." As Richard just stood there leaning on his cane, empty. He said, "We love you, Richard." And that caught on, and the audience began to just catch fire with this resounding, "We love you, Richard. We love you, Richard." And it became this deafening ovation of love, like a tidal wave that was just kept coming right at the stage, overtaking Richard as he stood there and just took it. This ongoing ovation, which is just the opposite of what we feel someone who was supposed to deliver and make us laugh and make us feel whole and connected. They didn't do any of that. And they got just the opposite of what they were able to deliver on their promise. People paid tickets, paid money for their tickets to have an experience with Richard Pryor. And he got up there and he couldn't pull it off. And he got just the opposite in return: love and visibility and support. David Chappelle said that it was so astounding that he felt that it was the first time that he had seen actual love expressed in mass. Richard Pryor didn't get up there to deceive anybody. And he definitely wasn't trying to be someone else. So what does this say about our experience of being what we, so to speak, call an imposter? You're not trying to be someone else, and you're not trying to deceive people. And Richard Pryor embodied that whole definition. I'm Richard Pryor, and I can't do this tonight. And what he got in return was the complete opposite of what we would expect. One final note that I want to make is that the mind sciences say that the mind is a probability machine. It's not a reality machine. So the mind is constantly formulating algorithms and equations of probabilities. They're probably going to hate me. They're probably going to trash me. They're probably going to abandon me. That's what the mind does. The mind does not fabricate reality. It fabricates probabilities. And it is these very probabilities that attach to our self-doubt. And those probabilities fabricate and multiply to the point where we say, I have no business being up here doing anything. I am an imposter. But the truth is, the mind itself is the imposter. Making us think that we are the imposter. So it suggests and indicates that we really need to understand the nature of mind, because it is the influencer of imposter syndromes. If we take a note from Richard Pryor, we can be fearless and courageous 100% if we trust ourselves enough to be able to take that risk. It was probably better for him to say, I can't do it, than to get up there and to try to really force something into play. But he had the experience of living, enough experience of living to know there's no point in me being fake. This isn't the best time to do it, to prove my authenticity, but it's far better than being fake. I'm going to tell the people what's up. And they loved him for it. The mind is a probability machine, not a reality machine. So I suggest, I would just want to offer that as a way that we can begin to look at the content of what the mind is suggesting to us, and not just how we perform and how we show up, but how the mind, what it is the contents of mind. And can we begin to find the agency to say, that is very enticing, this idea, and it's a probability. I'm familiar with the contents of this, but it's a probability. It's not the real deal, but it feels like it. And so, people, I just want to offer that to you as a pathway where you can find some, find your sense of agency in relationship to your own probability factory up here. Yes. I want to say thank you for your time. I feel that this is a good place for me to pause and stop. I appreciate your time and your attention. And if I went over a little bit, please forgive me. If we still have time for a couple of Q&A or something like that, that's fine. But I just had to get it out, and I did that. So thank you. Yeah. And that's still self-doubt. It's intellectual self-doubt. And I'm not by any means, an expert or a psychotherapist or anything like that. So yeah, that's my self-doubt showing up right now, making excuses for myself. But I feel like, Tim, it takes a long time for us to become comfortable in our own skin. And I think that the fact that we are where we are in whatsoever capacity that we are there, we're supposed to be there. And we just go through those those periods where we have shaky legs, learning how to stand and to find our constitution. And there's no switch for that. It's just a matter of the continuum and the enduring, allowing yourself to grow through that instability, because nobody else knows that about you. You know what I mean? That's just you. And so, we have to just kind of be more invested in who we are. And yeah, who isn't growing? You know what I mean? It's growth, and growth itself can look like something that disqualifies us. Because I'm growing, I don't need to be here. I need to be perfect before I I need to have everything together. And you know what? Perfection doesn't exist. It's never existed. It's a beautiful word, though. But perfection has never existed. And I think, you've been through enough doors to look back on your own experience and to see where you've experienced this before. Yeah. And I hope you move through this phase and get into the next door that makes you feel like, hey, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? I hope you get used to it. Anyone else?
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, actually, I'll read a question, and I see the hands that Sarita, your hand was up earlier, and I noticed you put it down, and it's down again. And I also see Edgy. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. But I received a question, and it is, in the moment when I find myself so engulfed in the mind's probabilities that feel real, even in my body, reactions, sensations, they feel so real, what suggestions do you have for practice in those moments?
I feel that one thing I think that we have to know about our practice is that it's something that's happening. It's always happening in a continuum. Like one moment of awareness is not a moment of awareness that's in a vacuum. It's part of, a whole other network of things that, are tangible and intangible. And I think that, we over time will just cultivate the ability to understand what the body is doing. The body records everything. Like some of us have, are really fluent with like somatic experiencing and these types of things. But the body records everything and it doesn't ask our permission. It doesn't get our consent. And so, we are, it's part of us learning how this body works, how this mind works, so that we don't have to be so thrown off by it. And over time we learn to adapt to understanding like this is the body's function in this. I felt like this. I feel like crap right now. The question is, the inquiry for me is, when have I felt like this before? And that's a good inquiry for this particular question is, okay, I don't have to like just completely be unnerved by this current feeling, but let me look at the continuum of my life, the trajectory of my experience in this body. And when have I felt like this before? And if you're patient and observant, you'd be like, oh yeah, when I was getting off the bus, by Lake Merritt, or when the cops were pulling me over, or, when I, left my last job or something. You know what I mean? There's some experience, some point in time when you felt like this before, and it was like, oh, I'm freaking out. But the body records things. I can't find my car keys, but it's registering the same way that an earthquake did 15 years ago. So I'm just suggesting that we don't have to like lose it, but we can begin to just understand that the body records everything, and there is some sort of combination that it knows that created this feeling from a past time, even though it's like visiting us now. Well, from the Black perspective, which I also know, is part of what reconciles that a little bit from time to time for me is the fact that that's always been, at least here in the United States, that's always been, these conditions have always been the prevailing conditions for Black people. It's always been this way as long as we've been on this particular land. And it has gotten better. It's changing, but there's a lot of generational things that are involved. There's a lot of, connectivity that kind of perpetuates it. And, the best thing that we can do is to just keep ourselves visible, to know what our intention is, to be connected with other people that, that share the views, share the lens that you do, who also want to mitigate the effects of the trauma that we know. And yeah, my heart goes out because I understand you're hitting a very, prominent bell with me in that regard. So But yeah, I mean, we don't know the end of this thing because, you know, the final outcome is not over yet. You know, we don't know that Donald Trump got away with this. We don't, you know what I mean? It takes a long time for these processes to come through. But I think that we just have to hold ourselves, you know, as compassionately as we can, and to be as authentic and as bold as we can as they work that thing out. So you were sharing that, you know, you feel like people were looking down on you because this big opportunity kind of came and went, and now you're just trying to figure out where you are. I think that we, you know, the ultimate thing is that you got the benefit of that experience. That door has not opened again yet. I don't know. And I don't know exactly where you are. But I think, you know, as an artist, you know, we have to, you know, like, that was a big deal.
Mm.
And it was an experience that came and went. And, you know,
Yeah.
and in the Buddhist tradition, they make these things called mandalas, which are these very beautiful, colorful, deep, meaningful expressions that are done with like sand and paint and different things. And at the end of a ceremony, they'll just like knock the whole thing over. It's like this whole artistic expression going into this beautiful object of art that everybody enjoys for a period of time. Then they, you know, they just let it go. So as a practitioner, I think that, and an artist, you know, we have to, there's still some connectivity that you have to that experience, which is understandable. But your maturity and the fact that you are still emerging and evolving suggests that, and the fact that you are here says that you have other things to offer.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
that was good for that time. But now, you know, now there's like a lot of possibilities. It might be quiet right now. It might be dark. You know, it may seem like nothing's coming up. But just continue to be true to your craft. And opinions are hard to overcome. But you know, they're just opinions, and part of this process is also just being more and more clear and comfortable with yourself and what you are about. And no one can really walk in those shoes but you. But you know, it's about loving who you are, what you do, and what you're here for, and being really clear about that. And just allowing yourself to see the alignment come with that opportunity. There's other opportunities coming, and it's good that you had that past experience to bounce off of. That blending is fun. And sometimes life has something else for us to do. You know, you might be a square peg trying to fit in a round hole, or vice versa. You know, some things there's some people we're not supposed to be doing things with, although everything that they're doing appears to be like the right thing. Oh my God, I got it. Oh, you know what I mean? And I think it's really important for those who remain that we hold to this definition, and maybe even study it further on your own, about what an imposter is. Because we can mischaracterize ourselves simply by going through the process of learning in our own human evolution and development of growing through fear, insecurity. Those things are not tantamount to becoming an imposter or fake or unauthentic. We find our authenticity by growing through the weakness and the shaky legs and the lack of confidence. The only thing that comes out of a lack of confidence is confidence. Having a lack of confidence is too uncomfortable to stay there. So, you know, it just has to swing in the other direction. And so I just feel like the only real way that you're going to really heal is to be grateful for that time because it showed you something, and to be open to this time because you're here and you still probably have a multitude more of talents and abilities and skills and a different vision, and just immerse yourself and and commit yourself to your own clarity and confidence about what you're about now. You probably don't need them anymore. Who knows? They might come back around looking for you this time. But I don't think you were found out. I think that you were just and I say that carefully because I'm still thinking of imposter in the true definition. But I feel like, the confluence of experiences and the self-doubt just, some people can just prey on weakness. You know what I mean? And that might have been the experience, but it's not your whole story though. It's a page. It might be a few sentences in your book, but it's not the whole story. And so being grateful for that experience is asking a lot, but it's possible. And loving yourself now and being invested in your craft now is what will get you through it. That experience it was designed to make you, not break you. So